So, good morning. Day after the solstice celebration, huh? Can you feel already the difference? Yeah, things are changing. And today is the last of our 2019 practice days here at the Zendo. Here in the city, we have a year-end retreat which starts on the 26th up at Garrison. But the Zendo here will be closed from now on, after today, until, I haven't written down what day. Do you know what day it is?
This Sunday, the first Sunday in January.
The first Sunday in January, whatever that may be. Please join us. Look on the website. It's been a really strong year here at the Zendo, which is terrific. We have one wonderful Sangha member who collects the data. Every day we put down how many people come. And then, so we got good news this year. It's better than 2018 and 2017. So it's been, also, you can just feel a kind of really sincere, ongoing, actually kind of humble practice that takes place here. It's wonderful. And, you know, with all the turmoil in the world, the growing awareness of climate change and the immigration issues that we all were so concerned about last year, still, of course, but the ongoing racism that is in our culture, classism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia. You know, I could just go on and on with the nightmares that we face. No wonder people have come here, more people have come to sit and to find a quiet space. And you know, apparently, I've been going on and on about these matters in my Dharma talks. Howard, our executive director, he's also my sometime editor. And he's been compiling some of my talks for a very modest little book that's happening. This publisher asked for. And when he gathered all the material, I took a look at it. Well, there's the Dharma, and then there's social justice, like in every single talk. I was kind of shocked. One would think I'd be calming you with instructions about meditation and how to be at ease in the world. But it seems like I'm also kind of riling you up a bit. So you could say that, you know, the work of a Dharma teacher is to remind us all of the absolute, of the oneness, the interdependence of reality. To remind us of the potential for our own enlightenment. But that enlightenment is, in fact, being aware of the vast net of Indra. The fact that we don't exist alone for the purposes of our own enlightenment. So, you know, it's said in the Zen tradition that when Shakyamuni had his awakening, he said, first thing he said was, above the earth and below the heavens, I alone am the world-honored one. But then the next thing he said was that who is that I? That I is everyone who has ever existed. All the mountains and rivers and trees and animals and peoples. That is that I, that awoken. Again, the vast net of Indra. So in order to be enlightened, it translates in the Zen tradition as serving all of life, serving all of life itself. Surely, many of us came to Zen because we were looking for a big experience. Enlightenment. Or perhaps we wanted to heal ourselves, free ourselves from our suffering. Both are absolutely possible and probable, but not in the way that we often think. Enlightenment ain't a thing to get or a place to go. If we think that, we're just in an imaginary dream, setting up another impossible thing. Because everything we need is really right here, now. We just have to realize it. We have the potential in every moment to recognize our interrelationship with everything that exists. Every drop of water, every breath of air, every being who has ever lived and ever will live. We're part of all of that. And yes, we're responsible for all of that. We have the potential to heal ourselves, to find the joy of life in every breath that we take. And through practice, our understanding of who we are and who the other is can transform into a really dynamic life, a kind of joyous adventure. What is this life? This so short life? How to experience it joyously, joyfully. So it's really easy to get seduced into an idea, a concept of this emptiness, some place of oneness that we can get to. And I think that's why I like Zen, because it's got a little rough attitude about that. Something that's constantly waking us up from the dream, the delusion. There's no other place to be. But, you know, it's tricky because through our practice, we do find ease and joy. We do. We find our place in the universe, actually. And it wakes us up to experience whatever's happening in each moment freshly. There's a wonderful poem, a very early Zen poem called The Song of Enlightenment, written in the 8th century by Yongji Zhuangzi. And I love this poem because most of it is about not falling into the dream, not falling into this delusion of the absolute and the relative, everything and the independent one. About not getting lost in our fantasy about emptiness. Here's something from that poem. It's a long poem, so don't worry. We're not going to go there with the whole thing. We know that Shakya's sons and daughters are poor in body, but not in the Tao. In their poverty, they always wear ragged clothing, but they have the jewel of no price treasured within. The jewel of no price can never be used up, though they spend it freely to help people they meet. We know that Shakya's sons and daughters are poor in body, but not in the Tao. Shakya's sons and daughters, that's us, right? Shakyamunis, those who follow the path of Shakyamuni Buddha. Poor in body, but not in the Tao. So that's our ordinary imperfections, you know, our simple bodies. Some of us older, some young, some fat, some thin, some rich, some poor. All of us filled with the Tao. Poor in body, but not in the way. And in our poverty, we always wear ragged clothing. I love that line. What is this ragged clothing? You know, on one level, it's kind of the patches that we wear when we take the precepts. But also I think about it as, you know, kind of the ragged parts of all of us. Huh? We wear our vulnerability in a way that we can encourage others. Always there, wear ragged clothing. No matter how raggedly we feel, we all have this precious jewel beneath the rags. The jewel that's hidden in our imperfections. If we wait until we're perfect, guaranteed we'll never act. The jewel is always there. I think of the courage of so many of my teachers who were really imperfect. They really were. And still they're willing to get up and give it a shot, you know? How beautiful is that? They didn't run away and say, I'm not good enough. I'm too raggedy. Yeah. It was wonderful. Wonderful to witness. In a later part of the verse, the jewel is likened to a moon that shines on all the waters and is reflected in the ocean. Reflected in the ocean and reflected in lakes and ponds, in tiny drops of dew, maybe even in a puddle of piss in one of our streets. Huh? What if? The jewel of enlightenment is shining a jewel. The moon is reflected in each of us, this jewel of no price. And what is significant in the poem, it says, the jewel of no price can never be used up, though they spend it freely to help people they meet. Just amazing. It's like a credit card that never gets used up, right? Here's my jewel. It can't be exhausted. the power of recognizing our interrelatedness. It can't be used up. It is what encourages us to care for others, for the whole world. Further along, the verse says, "The lotus lives in the midst of the fire. It is never destroyed." I guess many of you are familiar with that image. The lotus, it emerges from the mud. There's this beautiful, exquisite thing of beauty and symbol of enlightenment comes out of the stinking mud. The putrefying ponds that are enlivened by periodic forest fires, right? That's where those swamps come from. The lotus is the leisurely one who manifests activity in the world. Can you imagine a beautiful lotus, extraordinary flower, blooming in a homeless shelter? Blooming in one of the tents we see on the street, under the sidewalk sheds that protect us from buildings falling on our heads. Lotus is there, if we look carefully. Lotus in a solitary confinement cell, on an immigrant boat, in a broken heart. It's not some abstract idea of vast emptiness. It is the enlightenment of everyday life that the lotus represents. So this Song of Enlightenment, I encourage you to look it up and read it. It encourages us to allow our raggedy selves to be infused with the way and act from that place. And what steadies us in doing this is what the poem calls the leisurely one. What is that leisurely one? There's that leisure that is not frantically trying to save everything, but is present. Present. Who is that leisurely one? Isn't it you, yourself? When you're in touch with your true nature. I know when I come here in the mornings, I sit down here and there's the leisurely one. I'm not going to talk about the frantic one who's running in the door at the last minute. I'm talking about the leisurely one. So, this leisurely one is what people talk about when they talk about enlightenment, but they got it wrong. They solidify around some conceptual notion of emptiness, of oneness, of the great absolute. But I think that the image of the leisurely one is more on point for us here. That part of us that responds spontaneously and freely. That open heart that we suddenly recognize, oh, my open heart. that part of us that's willing to take care of what we encounter, that recognizes our interdependence and our uniqueness. But what I love about the leisurely one is that it implies the flow of life, freely flowing reality that encompasses all creations. And also a simple gesture that makes a difference. So let me offer an encouraging gatha to you for this, which is what I got from this Shodoka when I was putting my notes together. I came to this practice to find peace. I wanted to be free, to feel alive and fresh. I was doing it for myself. And as I practiced, gradually, I recognized who this I was. And wherever I turn, there is one I can serve. I can offer something. I can be of use. And thus I am served by the leisurely one.